Today's a very sad day. This is a Dawn Report, I believe, episode 8. And we have to talk about the shooting in Texas. Over 20 people dead, mostly children, 19, 20 children. Again, killed in an elementary school. And I want to send out, first of all, my condolences to the families. What can you say? Sending your kid to school and them never coming home. But I want to talk about the Second Amendment and the gun issue in this country, but not in a light that most of you have heard. I want to talk about the true reason for the Second Amendment, and most of you have not heard about this because, let's face it, it was from 1789. It's over 250 years old. The real reason we have a Second Amendment. It's not what you've heard in modern times. I'm not saying people are lying to you. There's the argument on the left. There's the argument on the right. They all have modern reasons or excuses for us to have a Second Amendment in guns. But that's not why it was created. And in order to make the proper adjustments to continue to have a Second Amendment, which I basically believe in, I believe you should have a gun to protect your home, your family, possibly your property. You might need one for various other reasons. But the real reason, and please listen to this, the real reason we have a Second Amendment was because in 1789 people had to eat. People had to eat. Americans were going to be given the right to own guns and firearms so they could hunt, because they did not have that right in Europe. The Second Amendment, and I wrote a paper on this in college, which was excellent, so I'm quite knowledgeable about the subject, okay? Got an A in public speaking for this. The Second Amendment was created because the people coming from Europe were not allowed to own guns. Only royalty and only the wealthy, the landowners, the lords, were allowed to own guns. And the reason was because they could control the food chain. They could supply and have control over the people via food. If you wanted to eat, you had to work at this rich guy's factory. If you wanted to eat, you had to support the royal family, and so on and so on. You could not own a gun. The hunters were royalty, and the landowners what could be called the bigger corporations back then. Of course, they really weren't corporations, but they provided the food for the common person and controlled them because of that. Okay? Very simple reason. In America, we decided that you would be able to hunt or protect your farms from, the vermin that can destroy crops and stuff. We decided you could eat on your own. You could have a gun. That was the number one reason. The number one reason in 1789 was not the overthrow of the government. That was way down on the list. It was not that they were robbers and thieves coming to steal your property. All that was a little bit higher up on the issue. Actually, the second reason you could own a gun in America was to protect yourself from wildlife. I mean, there were plenty of mountain lions, bears, not just for the food, but you needed to protect yourself from the wildlife. I mean, it was a wilderness. And you could make yourself a beautiful home out in the woods, but you still were subject to wild animals coming on your property. So, again, the number one reason was food. And we have seemed to completely forget that. Now, you had one shot. Revolvers, repeating rifles did not really come into their own until 50 years later, multi-shot type of guns. You had one lead ball. If you were good, you could shoot every 30 seconds. Every 30 seconds you could get off a shot. all right, at that animal, most likely. And if it was a rare circumstance where it was a robber or something, you had one shot and then it was your knife. But in most cases, if you armed with a rifle, that robber might turn away. He might run. And again, if he had one, you got one shot each, and then it's hand-to-hand combat. Much different than today, obviously. You don't have 6 shots, you don't have 15 shots, you don't have 30, you don't have 100. Now, how does that relate to today? Well, it doesn't. I mean, there are some hunters who, I do not hunt, but I believe people do have the right to hunt the deer, and whatever hunting season is, they have the right to go hunt. And of course, you don't need an automatic weapon with 30 shots to do that. A hunting rifle might have 3 or 5 bullets in it is more than enough for the sportsmanship involved, and I'm for that. And of course, as far as protecting your property, a handgun with maybe 6 or even 10 shots is enough. And again, it's only a handgun. And these military-type assault weapons just don't belong in our society for the vast majority of people. I could see exceptions where a law enforcement officer or a fireman or anybody in the field of safety might own one because they're probably trained well, and they might have one in the trunk of their car in their house for an emergency, just as we saw in Texas the other day. So I'm not opposed to a 100% ban on the long guns, on the automatic weapons. But I certainly want strict restrictions on anyone who should own them. All right? And there's just no need for 99%, 98% of Americans to own a weapon like this unless they can prove they've taken the proper safety training, know how to use one, and probably should have a mental exam. And there's certainly no reason why, as happened in this example, an 18-year-old kid in Texas went out and bought these weapons on his 18th birthday with no check whatsoever. He handed the man cash, walked away with the weapons. Nobody really knew who he was. Nobody knew his state of mind. And need I remind you, the killing power of an AR-15 assault-type weapon with 15 or 30 rounds of ammunition, and of course the extra clips you can buy. I mean, a person with a little bit of practice can probably get 45 shots off in a minute or more. And as we saw, this guy went into a classroom and, without describing what he did, he took the lives of 19, 20 children and 3 adults. There's no need for this. There's none. There's plenty of space and leeway for us to protect our Second Amendment rights and not having school children killed, or office workers, or people just in a park or at a concert for a good time. Again, we can have a Second Amendment that keeps all the trained, practical, safe gun users happy with their hobby. And it's a legitimate hobby. I love going to the gun range. I feel it's a sport like many other sports. I don't go there thinking in terms of aiming at a target and killing somebody. It's a target, and I want to hit the bullseye. It's fun. Okay, it's fun to try and train yourself to hit the bullseye without any thoughts of injuring a human being. But we've got to do something about this, and of course, it starts with you. It starts with you, with writing letters, making phone calls, rallying. You can be a hardcore gun owner, but You can be safe about it. You can be educated. You can make sure your children, although you may want to train your children, you can make sure your children do not have access to these guns, that they're only firing them and practicing with them when you're around. We have to get together on this. We have to make it safe for children, for adults, for you and me. To just walk around enjoying every other freedom we have and not have some mentally ill person indiscriminately take lives for reasons we'll never understand. All right, that's the Dorman Report today. Please share this with your friends on Facebook and YouTube. Please share it on YouTube. Please like on YouTube. I need a few more likes. And, of course, subscribe. People don't subscribe. I have one subscription. I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. And you'll get 1 or 2 emails a week. And if you get more than that and you don't like the short email, I mean, I'm not going to send out the emails, but when a new video is posted, you might get one. You can always block the email or throw it in your spam basket. But please, help me get this channel started. I think I have some good things to say. I think I may have informed you about something you might have never known about before, that the real reason for the Second Amendment was so people could eat. People could go get their own food. They could get their protein, or they could protect their crops. That's what they were talking about in 1789. Not overthrow of the government or robbers. That was unlikely. All right? People needed to eat. We expanded west, we expanded south, and people needed these muskets, basically what they were, or these small pistol handguns, to shoot a rabbit, to shoot a turkey, so they could eat. And of course, if they could eat, they could start their own business. They could become, as I said, a farmer, or a blacksmith, or a woodmaker. That was why we had the Second Amendment, so people could eat, not rely on the crown, not rely on the rich, so people could have their own lives and create their own careers. Look it up. It's true. Thank you again. This has been the Dorman Report. Share, like, subscribe.